Hello,
Hello.
how are you?
Oh dear, I just trying to get back to it.
All right, all right. Nice to see you. How you doing, Miss Brewer?
Good morning. I'm doing great. How about yourself, sir?
Doing fantastic, fantastic. We are excited to have you. You all are right on time, and students are here. I'm going to change the camera shortly.
Okay.
And our video is set to record, so we are recording and live. Yeah, I think we're good. I can hear them fine, and we are set to go.
Wonderful.
All right, so this is a special occasion for our class. Students have refreshments today, which is not typical, and they are enjoying eating the cheese and the crackers and the cookies, and this is a special day because you all are with us as our special guest, and so we are honored and excited to have you. And Ms. Johnson, you look very nice.
Why, thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and I know the class is in for a treat. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to present to our class our special guest from the Black Heritage Society. The students have done a presentation on your organization, and so they already have some prior knowledge. They've looked at the website, and they are excited. I am excited to learn more about the history of your organization, especially as it relates to the MLK Day celebrations that you have hosted in Houston for a number of years, even before the holiday became official.
Yes.
So with that being said, I am going to turn it over to you. I'm going to change the camera so you won't see me. We have a small class. Okay, there we go. So you should be able to see the students that are present. I don't know. You may have to move over. I don't know how to adjust that camera so that they can see you too. Maybe. Yeah, but yeah, we may have a few more students coming in. There is a total, I think, of 8 students in this class, but we're grateful for all those that could join us, and grateful again for you. So without further ado, I present to the class Ms. Brewer, the Executive Director of the Black Heritage Society, and Ms. Johnson, one of the longtime members of the society.
Thank you. Wonderful for your invitation. Thank you, sir, for having us today. And we are very honored to do this presentation. So again, thank you for allowing us to do this. I am Teresa Brewer, as he stated, the Executive Director, the Acting President, and operate in several capacities, wearing many hats. But I'm here today with our longtime board member as well, Miss Helen Johnson. She's one of the board members that was there at the very beginning of the conception of the organization. So we're very honored to have her as still part of the organization. I was accepted into president just in 2021. So we had our longtime president, he passed away, Mr. Vital, he passed away, Willard Vital. So I've been operating in this capacity for a couple of years, but I was vice president before. And just so we can get started, let Ms. Johnson, go ahead and give you a little bit more information about herself. And I do have a presentation to present before she start talking. Dr. Chisholm, are you able to share your screen once she finish, or will I be able to?
You should be able to. I haven't restricted that ability, but if we have any issues, I'll take a look at it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Helen Johnson.
Thank you. Good morning to all of you.
Morning.
It's just a pleasure to be here and to share some of my experiences with the Black Heritage Society. I'm 85 years old now, and so I've lived a lot of this that you're calling history. I cannot separate the Black Heritage Society and its conception from Ovi Duncan Tail. That's what he was called initially. And in later years, he became Ovid Duncan Tail. But I knew him as Ovi Duncan Tail, who was a dear friend of Willard J. Vital, the founding president. It was through Willard Vital that I met Ovid Duncan Tail. But I want to let the students kind of understand what was happening in Houston, Texas, Harris County, to be more specific, on the campus. I attended Texas Southern University in 1955 to 1958, then returned in 1966. It was during the 1966 part that a lot of things happened that you consider as historical. Because there I was working for the city of Houston. I had been hired to do a participant observation project for my sociology professor, who happened to be with the Civil Rights Commission. They sent me in because there was discrimination in the city's parks and recreation department with the staff, the training of the staff. And I was sent in to find out what was going on and to, if there was discriminatory actions, to actually highlight it so it could be acted on. I did it. I did my little paper. I was stressed out, let me tell you, but I did it. And we did find that there was discrimination. When I finished with my little paper, the FBI had come out to my job and told me to not work with the Black students anymore, the Black children, because I was helping to bring them into the parks. And then I'm still working for them, and I get involved in my sociology class. I'm all excited. I had 4 children now. I'm all excited. And I got into this protest with Otis Johnson. We were protesting and boycotting TSU in May of 1967. I'm there, right there with him by his side. And he started talking about bombing, putting a bomb at TSU, and I had to stop him. No, we're not going to do anything like that. I had to just kind of keep him calm down. He was so excited, and students were coming everywhere. We were all over Hannah Hall. We started walking. We went down the Wheeler. We were just excited. And he started telling about how he was mistreated and had been arrested. That's Lee Otis Johnson. I'm married to Otis Johnson at the time. So what happens? They started writing that that was my husband, Lee Otis Johnson. Anyway, that evening, the police waged war on the dormitory. And it was a lot of destruction going on. And one police officer was killed. And they tried to blame it on the students, but they found out later that it was a ricochet bullet because the students did not have weapons to fire. So this is how I get it started in this whole thing and looking at the injustices. And so Martin Luther King was not really revered in Houston, Texas. because he's talking about nonviolence. And here it was, all of this going on, and the students are feeling like he's too soft. He's too soft. We need a different type of leader. And already here comes Stokely Carmichael on the campus, and Stokely is talking Black power and all of that. So most of the climate was with Stokely Carmichael on the campus, and we had a SNCC organization. And we also had the SCLC. I guess you know what they are. If not, I have some slides and we'll go back and look at them later. But anyway, there was also something else going on that made Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. unpopular in Houston. Oh, am I getting too ahead of myself here, Ms.
No, go ahead. I'm going to do the overall presentation when you finish, and then we can come back with you, Ms. Johnson.
Okay, well, I don't know if the students want it, if I'm talking too much for them right now.
No,
not.
go ahead.
Okay, all right. Stokely Carmichael was favored, and so was Malcolm X. Students wanted action. We wanted somebody to go get them, all of that energy, and the students were just tired of things that happened. Plus, we had a sit-in at the lunch counter at Wine Gardens, and there was a problem there. The sit-in was okay. We made it with the sit-in, but after the sit-in, they went in and was trying to lynch a man, Mr. Turner. And it just so happened that the lynching was unsuccessful. So all of that had happened years in the 60s, 1960. All of this was in Houston. People were thinking about it. But the big rift with Martin Luther King was that the ministers were split on him. His father was with the Baptist Ministers Convention, and he wanted the ministers to get some spunk to do what Jesus did. He wanted them to get out there, get with the people. There are injustices here. He wanted them to do something about that, not just sit there, not be in the pulpit and take what they handed out. He wanted them to fight for justice, to really do something tangible. And the ministers didn't agree with him, and especially the one of his father's friends, who was the president at that time of the National Baptist Ministers Convention. So, of course, eventually what happened was Martin Luther King was ousted because he and his followers, there are other people that wanted him to lead them. They wanted the sit-ins, they wanted the freedom riders, they wanted all of that. But this Ministers Association said, we're going to keep the state and separate from the church. And that was not Martin Luther's vision. So he came up with the Progressive Ministers Baptist Convention. And so this is why Martin Luther was not accepted too well in Houston, Texas. And when he did come to Houston, Texas in 1967, there were the segregationists, the Klansmen out there, passing out their literature against him. And there were the ministers who weren't really supporting him. Now, Reverend Bill Lawson was helping him. Mm-hmm. Reverend Bill Lawson was with the Baptist Student Union on campus, and was the one that gave permission for the sit-ins. So anyway, and I was there. I was right there at the Houston Coliseum, and everything was going fine until Dr. Martin Luther King got up to speak. And we heard some rumbling and going on, and we didn't know what was happening. But when he came in, he was so forceful when he started talking. And he was saying, how can we wage war on Vietnam when we won't even give rights to our people that are right here? And he was making so much sense. And all of a sudden there was this smoke and the stink bombs, and people thought that they were blowing up the place, and they had to rush Martin Luther King out of the Coliseum. And that was just the year before he was assassinated. They had to rush him out. But it changed something in us because we wanted to hear more about him. And then we saw how they were treating him and we resented it. So I think that was a turning point for the people in Houston. We wanted to hear more from Dr. King. But I'm going to relax here because I get excited and I don't want to go into too much. I'm going to let Miss Brewer do whatever she has to at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. That's perfect. And as Ms. Johnson was saying, Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968, unfortunately. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can go ahead and present the presentation to you all about, sorry, here, see if it comes open, about the Black Heritage Society. Can you all see the screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So let me just go ahead. We are the Black Heritage Society, and we're embarking on the 45th annual original Martin Luther King Day Parade. And this year's theme is Climbing the Mountain to a Better Future. Again, this is the 45th annual Martin Luther King Parade. We're very proud of that. As Ms. Johnson was speaking, we do have our mission, and she just kind of alerted to all these things. Black Heritage Society is to perpetuate the dream and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. by fighting for equal rights for all people. We invite the entire community each year to join us in the Martin Luther King Original Parade celebration and activities. With a long history of fighting for equal justice and social accommodation for the rights of all people, the organization subscribes to activism, advocacy, and action on behalf of the underprivileged, underserved, disenfranchised, and marginalized population. We've been impacting lives since 1978. The Black Heritage Society is a self-help nonprofit organization chartered by the state of Texas. In the summer of 1975, one man's concern for the well-being and betterment of the entire human race led to the organization established. January the 25th, 1978, the original date of filing of the Black Heritage Society. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s father, Dr. Martin Luther Daddy King Sr., addressed the Houston community and commissioned Mr. Ovid Duncantel Jr. and the Black Heritage Society to continue its endeavors in the aspiration of Dr. King's dream. And as Ms. Johnson said, this is after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The parade commemorates the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In 1978, the Black Heritage Society established the first Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade in the U.S. Also, Black Heritage Society was the first organization to rename a major street after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., South Park Boulevard, now Martin Luther King Boulevard. And that's where they were strategically really the south of part of Houston. Am I correct, Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, they're southeast Houston.
Okay. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. became the first man ever to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize at the age of 35. He believed that it is the duty of righteous people to confront injustice when and where they find it. We had the unveiling of the statue not too long ago, May 24th, 2014. If you go to McGregor Park, you will see the Dr. Martin Luther King statue there, donated by 120,000 by, Attorney Benjamin Hall, and the the architect was Ken Washington of Greensboro, North Carolina. Any comments on that, Ms. Johnson?
No, it's fine. I just wanted to, I wouldn't even finish, I just wanted to talk. My experience was with Duncan Taylor himself, and I was going to bring that in, so. About Duncan Taylor, because
Okay.
he was the founder and executive director of Black Heritage Society.
Yes, and he was the executive director and founder. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Today, our programs consist of, we continue to the Memorial Project, the original Martin Luther King Parade every year. We have the annual Martin Luther King Candlelight Vigil. We continue with advocacy, action, and activism, park beautification, online media, story time, and we've incorporated the Martin Luther King Festival, Gospel Extravaganza Fest, and a Martin Luther King Day of Service. We do communicate to many about Dr. King timeless value, courage, truth, justice, love, equality, faith, nonviolence, education, hope, selflessness. And Ms. Johnson, she did talk about all of those that Dr. Martin Luther King demonstrated. January 16, 2023 will be the 45th annual original Martin Luther King Parade, which will be downtown Houston. We look forward to it again and again and again. Following the parade, we will have a festival, and that will be at the Herman Park Square, right at City Hall around the reflection fountain. Ms. Johnson, let's see here. One thing more, I was just going to go ahead before I turn it back over to you. This is one of the Mr. Ovite Duncan Taylor Jr. He was part of the People's Movement. Ms. Johnson, if you want to talk about that. And this is where I pulled up an article so you all can see it, maybe do a little research on it. And that is Carl Hamilton. They was part of the Black Panther. Ms. Johnson, I'll leave it to you now.
Okay, well, I guess you covered things, but I need to talk about this meeting over at Duncan Taylor. After I had worked with the Parks and Recreation Department and struggled through that project that became very successful, I was hired at TSU a little while later in 71. And I was the staff psychologist at that time and the recruiter. So I would go on campus and I would get students for the University Year for Action program. That was a one-year master's degree interdisciplinary project. It was a 5-year, it was a one-year degree program, but the project itself lasted for 5 years. Anyway, and Miss Dr. Hortense Dixon was the director of that program when I was hired initially. But in 72, she was hired by the then mayor, Fred Hoffhines, to be his administrator. So I stepped into the director's position. It was at that time that Willard Vital, who was a friend of mine, had been a coworker, called me and told me that he had a friend who needed help. He had been a person who had worked with the Harris County Community Action Association. He had done well, and he had also had his own little project where he was helping people to get social services. He had become discontent with the way that the city of Houston was handling the anti-poverty program, and he became quite outspoken. And so eventually he was looking for a job. He came to me and I had to go to the state to get approval for him to be one of the students in this program, master's degree program. And they knew that he had been, what he claimed to have been framed with a marijuana cigarette. So he had criminal charges pending against him. And they gave me approval for him to come in because he needed a job, he needed food, he was hungry, he was stressed. He came in and he was one of the best students, graduate students we had, getting his degree in sociology through this interdisciplinary process. And all of these students were trained to be they were trained to be change agents. So their job was to upset the status quo. I didn't know I was signing up for that, but it was interesting. And Ovi Duncan-Tail went on to get his degree and do great things. Well, in 1974, they had him to help with getting the renaming of the street for Martin Luther King. Now, a lot of people didn't know this, and this is something that that Duncan-Tail told me. His father was a minister, and so was Martin Luther King Jr.'s father. And in Louisiana, in Natchitoches, Louisiana, when he was a young boy, they were trying to get Blacks to vote, but they had them to pay the poll tax. Well, those who paid the poll tax, they knew that the segregationists were going to try to stop them from voting. So Martin Luther King Sr. joined Ovi Duncan-Tail Sr. They had their shotguns on their shoulders, and they led this group of poll tax recipients to the polls. And they meant business. They were not going to let anybody stop those Louisianans from voting. And it went off without a hitch. There was no trouble. The segregationists just looked at them, but they didn't bother them at all, and they were able to vote. So that sets the stage for why Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. was so close to Ovi Duncan-Tail. And Duncan-Tail said, we're going to rename this street, this main artery coming through a major heavily Black populated community. And that street was South Park Boulevard. He said, we're going to rename this. And because of the energy that he had and his determination, he always attracted people and they just wanted to follow him. He was not perfect. He did some things you didn't like, but he was dedicated to Martin Luther King. And so the people rallied behind him. The Black Ministers Associations rallied behind him. The Harris County Council of Organizations rallied behind him. And so the mayor said, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to approve this street renaming. So on January 21st, they were celebrating. It was so cold. It was cold and it was wet. It was damp. So many of the bands could not march because it was just too cold. And I came out of my house with my children. I was trying to get there, but my car wouldn't start. So I had to call one of the ministers and say, now tell me everything that happened. And he went and he did report to me. But those people, most of them did not let the weather deter them. They were there. I lived on the north side, but those on the south side, those people were out there. They were so excited that they were going to do something for Martin Luther King Jr. And all of the hatred, all of the disdain, all of those pent-up feelings they had, the hostility, all of that they had, they put into that renaming of South Park Boulevard. And they making it Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. And they were so proud. And they stood out there in the cold They stood out there in the sleet, drizzling, sleezing, whatever. It was just cold. It was almost unbearable. But they meant that they were going to see it through, the ones that were there. And of course, Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. came. He was so proud of O.V. Duncantel for taking the opportunity and the lead and by spearheading this event to honor his son. And he became the very first parade grand marshal. And he pulled Duncantel to the side and he told him this. He said, I'm proud of what you're doing for my son. And I want you and this group to keep my son's dream alive. And that was his charge to the people there on January 21st, 1978 in Houston, Texas, on the new Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. That was his charge, to keep Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream alive. And Duncantel accepted it. He accepted it to his very heart. And from that day forward, he was determined to have that parade in commemoration of that day, of the renaming, and of Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Sr.'s charge to the Houstonians. And so from then on, there we were trying to have this parade. And so the very first parade in the honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was the Black Heritage Society's parade. And that's what we are proud of today. Ms. Brewer.
Ms. Brewer.
Pardon?
Sorry about that. And it was recorded, with the Secretary in the state of Texas, everything. The original was recorded, January the 25th. It was recorded then.
Okay.
1917. I went and pulled the records with the Secretary of State.
It was established officially.
Yes, yes. We're very proud of that. Let's see, just so I do have a video at this time. I would like to show Ms. Johnson just a second, please. I'm gonna share the screen to see if I can share with you all this video. No, that's not it. 1 second. And this is the video that Ms. Johnson and Mr. Willard Vital, they gave their testament of what happened during the time. Just a little clip. I'm not going to do the whole video, but just a little bit of it. Here's a highlight.
The PowerPoint is still up, or the PDF. You have to reshare it.
What do I need to do, sir? I'm sorry.
You have to reshare it. The previous file is still up.
Okay, 1 second. Let's see here. Did it make any changes?
It did. I think you got it now.
Okay.
I am Teresa Brewer.
Can you all hear it?
Vice President of the organization. In 1978, Dr. Martin Luther King's father, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s father, Dr. King, Daddy King, addressed Houston and the Houston community. He commissioned Mr. O.V. Duncantel and Black Heritage Society to continue its endeavor in Dr. Martin Luther King's dream aspiration. Today, the organization aims to inspire, teach, and honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the federal holiday with the parades and other activities throughout the year. We have with us one of the founding members, Mr. Willow Vital. He is the president of the organization. We also have Ms. Helen Johnson, treasurer, secretary of the organization. Hi, Mr. Vital. Can you give us a little history about your experience at the beginning of Black Heritage Society?
We was in coach for some time, and then we moved around from there place to place.
Is that the building that you were in?
Meeting.
Mini building, and that was the first building for Black Heritage Society?
We were moving from some building
Mr. Vital, can you share with us some of the experience you had during that time when Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. came here for the parade? He was here in Houston, and he was the one that commissioned Black Heritage Society and our late director, Dr. Kell. You were here at that time. Can you tell us about that?
We sisters, the place right for the old place over there. We just do some on Sunday. The building was
So it sounds like it started off, it was very difficult at the beginning, during that time. Would you say that, sir? But the organization has been around a long time. How did you make it? How did the organization get this? And I know that you were at one time, you worked under the mayor. Could you tell us a little about that? And how did you and Mr. Johnson get together? Well, I'm a native Houstonian, and I have enjoyed the parade for many, many years. So I just want to thank you for staying there and making it come to pass. Ms. Helen Johnson, you are the current secretary treasurer of the organization. Can you just share with us some of your experience of in 1978 with the parade and Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. coming and commissioning Black Heritage Society to carry on the endeavors of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Because I know you're a long time member.
Well, actually, I was here let me first say that I am so glad that you are taking the time to recognize board members. So that's something that's been needed for a very long time, the Black Heritage Society. And I predated the 1978 event. I was over a program at Texas Southern University called University of Action. And Duncan Kell was one of the students, and 72.
I'm going to go ahead and stop it at this time. Ms. Johnson, I think it's pretty much what you've already have gone over. Anything else to add to that, Ms. Johnson?
I think you're muted. You have to turn your microphone back on.
Ms.
Yeah.
Johnson, yes.
It was not an easy go for over Duncan Taylor. This fantastic project that centered around the parade, which was his major fundraiser, came out here. There were a lot of obstacles. There were a lot of, let's say, sabotaging going on. And it was a fight all the way through. It was a fight. Duncan tells the Black Heritage Society was not favored by a lot of them. And one time I know that we had a very poor showing in our parade. And we had to fax the very morning of the parade. The city of Houston told us we had to fax some form to them before we could even go with the parade. So there we were, 6 a.m. Trying to get things into the city before 10 o'clock, before 9 really. And faxing was not something that was very familiar at that time. And I was the only person that knew how to fax. Duncan Taylor had a fax machine, but he didn't know what to do with it, and neither did any of the others. So I was the one that had to get that fax in, and we got the fax in about 8 o'clock, and the parade started at 10 on time. There were a lot of little things that went on, a lot of unexpected things, and I'm sure that some of them know about one of them, and that was the emergence of the other parade. Well, I would like to make it clear that Duncan Taylor, when I asked him about Charles Stamps, he made sure that I understood so I could tell this story. He said Charles Stamps was the best coordinator he ever had for that parade. Charles Stamps handled his parade. He didn't have to worry about anything because Charles Stamps would just take it and go with it. But when Charles Stamps asked him to give him a raise, that's when the trouble started, because he didn't feel that it was enough money coming in to actually give Charles Stamps what he wanted. And that's when the split came about, and Charles was angry with him, but Duncan Taylor praised him to the end, even though they had their bitter battles. At one time, they were very close, and Duncan Taylor was trying to wait until Charles did come back to him so they could work out something, but Charles wasn't for it. So until the very end, those two who had once been very close never reconciled. But that was the beginning of a lot of friction and troubles for the Black Heritage Society. But through it all, people remembered that Black Heritage Society was the first Martin Luther King Jr. parade, and they continued to rally behind it. And that grassroots effort is still in operation today.
You're muted. Turn your mic back on, Ms. Brewer.
All right, sorry about that. And as the video was talking, Mr. Willard Vital, he passed away in 2020. 2021, and 2021. But he was instrumental in helping Mr. Ovi Duncan Tail carry on the organization along with others. Just want to share that with you. Mr. Willard Vital, as you notice, he did have a stroke, but even still, they were so committed. Mr. Willard was still there doing all that he could do to make sure Black Heritage Society continued. Mr. Ovi Duncan Tail Jr., he passed away October the 25th, 2018. And the organization was saddened, but we still continue to carry on this organization and the manner in which Mr. Ovi Duncan Tail Jr. would be proud. Again, Ms. Johnson, she's here, and we're trying to make sure others know the story of Black Heritage Society and how we've moved forward. And it has been a lot, but we're still going forward. Again, we're ready to have our 45th parade. And before we get started, let's see, I can show you clips of the parade, but City of Houston really does a wonderful job of coming out and supporting us. And we just want to give the parade with excellence. So we invite, we partner with the City of Houston, and we have the parade, the official parade downtown Houston. And we invite everybody. So we not only have a parade, but we have a gala sometimes. And this year we're going to have a concert, a gospel concert, as well as the Martin Luther King Festival with the Children's Day of Service. So we look forward to everybody, all City of Houston and more. We have Radio One that hosting, they broadcasted all over. We hoping that other TV and other media, social media platform jump on board. So we're very excited about continuing the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. And as Ms. Johnson, our theme for this year is climbing the mountain to a better future. Ms. Johnson, if you could elaborate on that, and we're gonna wrap it up. You're muted.
You're still muted, Ms. Johnson. Can't hear you.
Instead of elaborating on that, because you're doing a fantastic job, I was thinking about how Duncan Tail was so excited and marked a place where he wanted to plant a tree that was going to be the memorial. That was going to be the symbol of the renaming of the street and the dedication to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So in '83, he marked that spot, 1983, and the tree was donated by the nephew of Dr. Martin Luther, and that was Derek King. So they planted this beautiful oak tree. But we know that here recent years that the city of Houston was going to put a rail through there, and they were they were going to actually destroy that tree. And that's when you have Duncan Tail chaining himself to the tree, because their verbal commitments to let the tree to transfer the tree to South McGregor Park. He did not trust them, because they shouldn't have been moving the tree in the first place. They should not have chosen that route for what they were doing. And he distrusted them, and he chained himself. So that's how we had the saga about the tree, and how we were able to get the stature of the tree and the plaza there at at South McGregor Park. Pardon me.
Wow, thank you for sharing that history. So you're muted, Ms. Brewer.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for sharing that and bringing that back up, Ms. Johnson, because that tree of life is there at the Park today, and Metro was instrumental in helping us moving that tree. So we want to thank them, continue to give shout out to Metro. I want to say Gilbert Garcia, and also we want to give a shout out to let's see, Mr. Claude Cummins. He was instrumental with Black Heritage Society and making sure we maintain our existence with the donation of a location. The union has been very much a part of the movement of Dr. Martin Luther King. So we want to make sure we continue to acknowledge all of those that made contribution to the legacy and continue this organization. But you're right, Ms. Johnson, that tree is there. And now we have the tree, and Reverend Dr. Derek King is coming to the, he's one of the co-grand marshal. He's coming to the parade in 2023. So we look forward to having him there. Lord say the same. But that tree and the statue is all there today. So, we just want to continue to thank you all. And you can go to the McGregor Park and see all of it for yourself. But you're right, Ms. Johnson. Thank you.
And we are grateful to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and now Representative, I think it's Representative Yolanda Jones.
Yes.
All of them were involved in making sure that we were able to save the tree.
Wow, so that's fascinating. So Charles Stamp, well, Duncan changed himself to that tree.
Duncan Tail, Black Heritage Society.
Yes.
Yeah. So at this time, we have about 12:35 when this class ends. And so if you all have some time, I would like to open it up for questions and answers. Allow the students in the classroom to ask some questions. They've did a little bit of background research on the Black Heritage Society and have listened to your presentation today. I'm sure they've learned some new things based on what you shared. And if you have questions that you would like to pose at this time. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to say thank you both for coming because this is the first time I've heard people talk about Houston history, like as it was happening to them, because most of the time I hear it, people talk about Houston history, it's like a dark joke here or there, and then it's brushed off, or like some morbid fact that someone didn't live through. So I really appreciate y'all coming to talk about it and talk about the work you've done. I think something I wanted to ask, coming from my research thing, was how many organizations do you guys have in connection to the Black Historical Society? Because when I was looking into some of the charity work y'all do, I noticed you tend to put individuals first, which is really cool, but it makes it really interesting to research. Because I kind of have to look at it backwards to find anything. Because for example, I was looking into the charity gala that you have in conjunction with the rodeo. So that's essentially the question is how many people, not many people, but how many organizations do you have in conjunction with the society?
I need someone to repeat the question.
Yeah, so I know sometimes they get muffled with the mask, but basically how many organizations does the Black Heritage Society partner with? I think is the gist of the questions. Like if you can talk about some of your partners over the years that you have worked with.
I think the two that were most dedicated to Duncan Tail were Shape Center with Deloyd Parker. Deloyd Parker has been there. He was a part of that University Youth for Action program as a resource person. And of course, we had Johnny Mata, who with LULAC. that was also very close, and he and Duncan Tell remained friends until the very end, helping each other. Also, when the St. Patrick's Day parade was in trouble, Duncan Till got with them to help them. And we have the Jewish, the Anti-Defamation League, and also recently it was the Pakistanians that joined Duncan Till. We are involved with almost every anti discrimination and injustice group that you can name.
So like the local NAACP, you partner with them too, possibly?
NAACP, the Urban League, you know, all of them were part of the Big Five. When I know they studied the history of Dr. Martin Luther King, and you had the Big Five working together. The NAACP was one of them. I can pull up my little slide and see it. The Urban League, SCLC, SNCC, CORE, and which one am I missing? I'm missing one, but it was the Big Five, and I let me see if I can share it. I'll see if I can pull up something that I have here. Let me see.
While you do that, we were part of the Frontier, but we no longer network with the Frontier group, but the Frontier hosts the Martin Luther King breakfast each year. Now, as far as the, I want to say the rodeo, there is a Black Heritage Society. I want to say that's just a network or organization, not exactly sure, but we're not affiliated with them. But like Ms. Johnson said, we do affiliate with groups and organizations that are standing for the injustice of all people. Just a little clarity there.
Thank you.
Here it is, the Big Five. See, here, Martin Luther King. Let me see where talk about their CLC. Trying to see which one am I. For SCLC, NAACP, and Urban League.
Yeah, I think you named five. I think you got.
Okay, all right. Okay. Okay.
The NAACP, the Urban League, the SCLC, SNCC, and CORE.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Other questions?
Yes, I'd like to take this opportunity first to thank both of you for taking time out to join us this morning. Both of you are living history, and it's very much appreciative. Ms. Johnson, you have connected a lot of dots for me. Going back to South Park Boulevard, I'm old enough to remember when it was South Park Boulevard. And let me say that I was also in the park, McGregor Park, when the statue for Dr. King was dedicated, and his son was a part of that dedication. I just happened to be there that day. But the one thing I didn't know was the history of the tree. So that's one of the dots that you connected.
Okay.
And so when I visit that area again, I'll never look at that tree the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Another question I have, and I'm just putting this out for both of you. In those early days, when Mr. Duncan Till took on the venture of renaming South Park Boulevard, was there a pushback? And if there was, can you tell me about that pushback? From a local level, a city, maybe, or some organized group that didn't want to, to see their name changed, to see that out.
Repeat the question.
My question is, when Mr. Duncan Taylor took on the venture of renaming South Park Boulevard to Martin Luther King Boulevard, did you receive any kind of pushback from the city or people who didn't want the name of the street to be changed? Were there people who were opposed to that, who were against that?
There were people who were against it, of course, but the people who were for it were so adamant, and they weren't going to accept anything less. So the ones who did not want their precious boulevard changed, they left it alone, and the mayor went ahead and approved it.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I think part of that question relates to another group that is presented to our class that did receive some pushback when trying to do something in the city of Houston as it relates to MLK and honoring his legacy. But what I'm hearing is that you all had so much support and so many people behind the effort until it outweighed any significant pushback. And in as much as it was able to move forward pretty fluidly.
Well, I think what we're looking at is Houston had at that time, Houston had one of the largest African-American populations. This meant votes. So to cross that group, especially when all of the ministers joined in, and that Harris County Council of Organizations are the oldest political organizations that we have, comprised of many of the ministers from various denominations. I don't think that the politicians wanted to take that chance and go against them, because it was so well organized and people were passionate about it. So that's why it helped, because for the first time you had a unified Black community behind that Martin Luther King Jr. parade, Junior street renamed.
Thank you. I know we may have some other questions, but I do want to ask this question. I think it's important. Can you discuss how students can become involved with the Black Heritage Society with any of your programming? If it's what kind of support do you need for the annual MLK Day Parade, and what other ways do volunteers help support your organization?
It's through volunteers.
That's a great question. And thank you for asking that. We're definitely looking for volunteers. So if you go to our website, we encourage you to go to our website, and that is www.blackheritagesociety.net. And if you go to the website, definitely look under contacts. Under contacts, you will find a volunteer section. We do need volunteers for the parade. I'm looking for anybody. You all can come. The day of the parade, we need volunteers along the route to assist us in making sure safety and a good time of the participants in the parade. We have tens of thousands of people, some people from out of town. They come to witness this parade. So we welcome volunteers. We have a training that you complete, and then you're able to volunteer. The festival, we need volunteers at the festival. So please, please sign up. We would love to have you. Again, you go to the website, www.black, B-L-A-C-K, heritage, H-E-R-I-T-A-G-E, society, SOICETY.net. Again, touch on the tab contact. You should be able to access the volunteer, or you can click on original parade and click on that tab. You should be able to contact the volunteer section. We also have our phone number listed, so please feel free to give us a call. Telephone number 281-405-0006. This year, we're going to have a Children's Day of Service. So we're expecting a lot of young kiddos to come out, learn about Dr. Martin Luther King, and then they'll probably be able to recite what they're going to do when they become an adult to help others. So we will have a Children's Day of Service. Look forward to having you.
Okay, any other questions?
I know Ms. Johnson had said that the society had been affiliated with things, with organizations that kind of surround injustice. By any chance, a few years ago, I went to an exhibit, Say Their Name, and I feel like I saw, were y'all affiliated with that exhibit?
I think, were you speaking, Ms. Johnson? I think your microphone was muted. The question was, were you all affiliated with Say Her Name?
Say Their Name.
Say Their Name. It was an exhibit here in Houston.
It is say what now?
Say Their Name?
It was like, okay.
I don't think so.
And I think part of that, I don't know if you all have been able to partner in any ways with Black Lives Matter.
Would you put that in the chat to me, please? The name, because I don't want to exit it because I'm not hearing well. But would you put that name in the chat for me?
Just say their names.
The name of the organization that you're inquiring about, would you spell it out in the chat for me?
Oh, it was an exhibit.
It was an exhibit.
Say Their Names. That's the name of it. Say Their Names.
It was about like it was kind of surrounded with like the police brutality. Like it had different pictures of who had been murdered by the police.
Okay.
It's like Discovery Green Park area, and I feel like I saw the Black side.
Okay. Was this Reverend E.A. Deckard?
That I'm not sure. I just know it was an exhibit.
Okay, I know Reverend E.A. Deckard, who's on our board, is working in that Greens Point area. That's why I asked you, and I need to know the sponsoring agency. Which agency did it emanate from? Say Their Names, because where I might not recognize say their names, I might know the parent agency for it. And you're not that familiar with it either. But I tell you what, we're going to look that up, and Ms. Brewer, we're going to get back with this class on that, because I want to know about the say their names now. I'm interested in it, you know, especially since it's a part of the history. We need to get in touch with them. But right now it's my gut feeling that it is a project of an organization that we're already working with. But we will look it up. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
I would like to also interject that on our website, we do have two petitions that if you all want to get involved, that's another way community involvement is signing our petition. If you're on the volunteer list, we send out a notice and let you know where we're going to different locations to get people to know more about the petitions. Right now, we have a petition for gun law changes, as well as mental health conditions prevention, crisis prevention, mental health crisis prevention. So those are the two petitions. They are on our website. Feel free to go to our website. I put the website in the chat so that you can review it and go there and you can sign the petition if you want to get involved and go out and help us to get people signing those petitions. Become a volunteer. We take your name and your phone number, and when we go to different sites here in the city of Houston, we let you know so that you can come out and help us to inform the public about these petitions and how we can better our community.
I just Googled the Say Their Names. It's a real catchy title. And it seems like it's a new group that grew out of the Black Lives Matter movement. So we will be looking at that Black Lives movement. That's a direct response to them. So we will be getting in touch with that group.
I have a question.
So we have maybe time for one more question before we have to close out.
Hello, Ms. Johnson and Ms. Bruin. An honor to have you guys here. I'm one of the students who is newly introduced to all of this information about Martin Luther King and also Malcolm X. And my question for you guys was, what steps have the Black History Society group taken to keep their core beliefs and values as their foundation? Has it progressed in a negative way or a positive way?
Were you able to hear okay?
Is she rephrasing? Is she asking, have the values of the organization changed over the years? Is that what basically?
Or no, what are the steps that the Black Heritage Society group taking to keep their core values and their core beliefs as their foundation for the organization?
Okay, Ms. Brewer, you take it.
Yeah, our core value is still the same. We are still concerned about the issues of justice and liberty for all. That is part of our mission. And we built on that, and we're continually building on that. That is the reason why we have advocacy, the petitions. We're following in the footsteps of Mr. Ovite Duncan Tell Jr. and getting out there, pounding the pavement, letting people know about the rights of others, the issues that people are concerned with. And that is the reason why I've just communicated that with our petitions. Please join us. And, you know, we need to have gun laws changes. These are issues that affect everybody. So those values of Dr. Martin Luther King, justice for all, that still exists today. It's very much relevant today as it was then. We still have some racism that exists in our society. So we all have to come together collectively. We want to have inclusions. If you come to our parades or you come to our events, we want to include everybody. We're encouraging all of us to come together, just like Dr. Martin Luther King said.
Well, I would like to say, just like we have a resurgence of what I would call this racism, and now it's now structural racism. Just like we have that resurgence here recently, we also at the Black Heritage Society have gone back and say, okay, we need to get back on our program. We have to make sure that we're advocating for the marginalized and the disenfranchised. we have to get back on this. And so we are reestablishing those core values and those principles because we believe, like Dr. Martin Luther King say, none of us is free unless all of us are free.
Yes.
So where there's injustice anywhere, there is injustice everywhere. Oh, we are back at where we started advocating, because that's where our country is, especially these southern states. The very things that they were fighting in CORE and SNCC and SCLC, we're fighting them right now. We're looking at voter suppression and all of that all over again. We're looking at the Black Code trying to get back in here on us. So yeah, we are fighting, and we're fighting harder.
Thank you. I think that is a remarkable way to conclude this presentation and our time together. And I just encourage you all to continue fighting, and we are standing in solidarity with you in the struggle to continue the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. And thank you again for all